If you have questions when doing a child support worksheet, the code answers them. The child support worksheet online simply is a quick way of doing child support that you can do by hand if you just follow the code. And you'll see while it's 46 pages long, the last 20 some pages of this are this big chart here. And this is how you actually calculate child support if you know the income of the parties. You can do it by hand here. And I'm a big nerd, and so I actually like to know why we're doing the things that we're doing. And I think, sorry, I didn't realize it went quite so long. It was literally the last 20 pages. And so the way that you calculate child support, the way that the child support worksheet online does it for us is if you know the combined income of the parties. And so if we, for example, say that the mother makes $400 per month and the father makes $400 per month, their combined adjusted income is this $800 right here. And then you just go across to how many children there are. So if we said there are 2 children, the parties' combined income is $800. The total child support amount for a child, for those 2 children in that family, is going to be $283. That amount is then divided pro rata based on the number of people, or based on the percentage of the income of each of the parties. So in the hypo that I just gave you, if the parties each made $400, their share of this amount is 50% each. And so they would each be responsible for half of this amount. Okay, so now turn your sound on and tell me if that makes sense or not. Is everybody following me?
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
I'm with you so far.
Okay. So what we can do then is I'm going to switch screens here. Give me a second. So do you all have you all been to the child support calculator page before?
I have. Okay,
it looks like this. So if you want to follow along and go to this website, it's the gsconlinecalc.georgiacourts.gov. You may see some attorneys still try to use the online versions, or excuse me, the Excel version. Sometimes that is no longer an appropriate thing for people to use. They are no longer updating the Excel worksheet. The only worksheet that is correct is the one that you get from this website. Okay. That was a problem earlier. It was a problem last year because the site got hacked and went down, and so nobody could do it. And so we all had to kind of use the Excel worksheet for a while, but this is the only one that's actually proper, okay? So to do a new worksheet, so this, they actually have fairly good instructions on here, so you can get the manual, and you can attend a training if you want more, but to start, this is kind of basically how to start. So you're gonna create a folder.
And a quick question, I noticed that you logged in. Do you have to create a profile and everything?
Yes, it's free to do it though. So pro se people can set one up too. For the folks at DVLF, you may want to ask Annie if she has an account already and just wants you to use hers so that they'll all be in one place, or if she wants you to set up a separate account. Melissa, you can set up a separate account. Kat, you can use mine if you want. So whatever we need to do. I'll show you guys later, there's a way to share these once you make them. So you can even share them with people that are in a different account from you. So I'm just gonna go through and fill out one as if we have a case, okay? So we're gonna just say that the case is in Fulton County. Well, we'll do it in DeKalb because you guys are gonna be primarily in DeKalb, okay? You guys are always going to have superior court, even in TPO court, while it's a magistrate judge, those are technically superior court cases. So our plaintiff is going to be, we'll just do Joe Smith. I don't actually have a relative named Joe Smith, if you can believe it, but defendant's name is going to be Jan Smith. If you had this non-parent custodian name here, if a grandparent, for example, had custody of the children, that's where you would put that here. And in that case, both parents would be paying child support to the non-custodial parent. You guys generally won't see that very much. This is going to be the case number for you guys. I think it's a PO number, if that's right, for protective order. A DHS, DCSS case number, that's if the case is going through child support services. We won't see those cases very often because those are ones handled by DHS. The type of action, if there's never been a child support order in place before, it's an initial action. If you are modifying a child support order, and again, that's an order, a previous order, then it's a modification. If it's a modification, you're going to put the date here. Okay. This is repetitive. You have to put the parents' names back in, and you have to spell them correctly. It's going to make you certify. This little window comes up and it's going to make you certify that you spelled everything correctly, because you cannot go back and fix it once you put it in there. And then you choose the non-custodial parent. So if we say that in this case, Jan is getting custody, she is the custodial parent, Joe would be the non-custodial parent. If a grandparent had custody, then both of them would be non-custodial. Okay? Speak up if you have questions. This I find to be the most tedious part. You have to add each child to the worksheet. Their birth date is going to just be the year. Included or excluded, generally all the children in the cases you see will be included. I haven't had an issue where you've had to exclude a child before. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 children.
Would an excluded child be something like maybe kids from a previous marriage that one of the parents had?
No, because there's going to be another place for that, and I'll show you that. No, so I guess it would be if perhaps you guys decided that one of the children in the marriage is not going to be included for child support for some reason. Like there would have to be a special instance for that. Okay. And then this is going to be your name. It will automatically fill it if you're logged in to there. And if you're representing, the plaintiff, then you would just put that in there. Okay. Or, if it's somebody else. Okay. Social Security, retirement, disability payments. If you forget what these are, this will help you here. These are payments that are made to a child who has a disability. So it's essentially like SSDI payments. These are not SSI payments. So if it comes up, then you're really gonna want to ask Annie or somebody to help with this, or ask somebody who knows. It doesn't come up that often, but it does come up. Okay. And then this uninsured healthcare expense, this is just how it's going to be divided in the future. Oftentimes we'll just see, I'm sorry, my phone was ringing. Oftentimes we'll just see 50-50. If the party's income varies wildly, then that could be a different number. You don't have to put something here, but it will show up in the child support addendum. Okay. So once you have all of the information, it doesn't like that shiny. So once you have all the information in here, then you're going to go to gross income tab. Okay, so we were at the basic information worksheet. We're now at the gross income tab. You may see folks who receive TANF. Okay, so again, if you need to remember what that is, any TANF income that they receive, which is cash payments to families, won't be considered income. Very few people receive TANF just because in Georgia it's really hard to get TANF. The most important number in the child support worksheet is going to be this gross salary and wages. And this is important here. So no means tested public assistance. So not TANF, that cash payment, and you're not going to include things like food stamps. So in this case, we're going to, minimum wage is about $12.69. So if they each made minimum wage from a W-2 type of job, it would be like this. If there is self-employment income, then it's taxed differently, and so they give people credit for that. So if the income is through 1099 wages, so like somebody's just a contractor for Uber or Lyft or something like that, and they're going to get taxed almost twice as much as somebody who's a W-2 employee, and so they take that into consideration. So you put that here and you do a different kind of income thing. Generally though, it's going to be up here. Let's make Joe have a little bit more income so that it looks different later. If they're getting, so these you might see this more and more. Unemployment benefits, a lot of people right now, the only income they have is from unemployment. There may be alimony, there may be somebody gives them monthly payments. Generally though, you're gonna either see income here or you're gonna see it down here under other income, imputed income. So imputed income means when the court says, okay, I understand that you're not employed right now, or that you're only employed on a part-time basis right now, but I think that you could actually be employed at a better job or at a higher paying job, or I think you could be employed even though you're not now. And they make up a number and put it in here. And so what I see often is imputing minimum wage to somebody who has been out of the workforce for a while, that is still young enough to work and get a job. We might impute minimum wage for them, even though they don't have a job right now. Okay. And then if you do have imputed income here, you're going to write why there's imputed income. Okay. For whatever party's imputed. Are there any questions about how to calculate income? A really important thing to note is that this is gross. So that is before taxes. A lot of people get mad about that because they're like, well, but I only actually, I might get paid $12.69 a month, but I really only take home $800. Doesn't matter. That's taken into account in the numbers. It's gross salary and wages. Okay. Okay. So then you go to adjusted income. Here's where things get a little bit wishy-washy. Okay. If you do have self-employment income on the previous worksheet, this is where you're going to put that self-employment income, but it's only for the amount that they're getting through self-employment income. So for example, if I'm a W-2 employee during the day, but I also drive for Uber at night, I'm going to put the Uber amount in here, not the full amount of salary and wages. Okay. Here is an adjustment for pre-existing child support orders being paid for other children. And so Kat, this kind of goes to what you were talking about, is if you're paying child support for a previous, on a previous child that you had, or even it could be a younger child, but that order was entered first, that is a dollar for dollar reduction of your income. And so what they're saying is we're going to treat that child support payment as if you don't have that income because you don't have access to it at all. And you'll notice it does not include arrearage payments. It only includes what they're supposed to be paying on an average monthly child support. What this means for people who have multiple children from different parents is that the first child is going to have a bigger child support award than the second because the income they're taking into account, that full income, whereas the second child only gets the benefit of the reduced amount of child support and down the way. So I hear stories about, other mothers showing up to mediations or something like that, trying to make sure that the negotiation of one child support order doesn't mess up theirs. So you can kind of see how that would work. You have to put it, so if you want it taken into consideration, you have to put it in here. It does not have to go in here. And so I see sometimes, if you don't put it in here, too bad. And so sometimes it's better for your client to be in there. Sometimes it's better if there's not taken into consideration. This one is discretion. So this next one is similar, but very, very different. So if you have a child, like if you've had another child who is living with you and you are required to take care of that child and you do not have child support from another parent for that child, it is discretionary to put that child in as a qualified child here. And so this is the one that gets tricky. Because you have to be able to say, I think it asks you all the questions. So yeah, you have to go through and certify that the parent is legally responsible for the qualified child. So if I think about I have a son, right? So I am legally responsible for him. Yes. Does he live in my home? Yes. Am I actually supporting him? Yes. The qualified child is not currently before the court set to modify or enforce child support. Yes. And my child is not subject to pre-existing child support order. Yes. You have to be able to say yes to all of those in order for the child to qualify. Okay. Any questions about that one? Okay. And then if you do have another qualifying child, you have to explain why here. The court doesn't look at the explanations, but it does force you to have those explanations in there. So after you do adjusted income, and remember, adjusted income is a dollar for dollar reduction in income. Health insurance and childcare under Schedule D is an adjustment to the amount of child support paid. So it's not a reduction of income, it's an increase or decrease in the amount of child support. So if we say that health insurance, that Jan is paying health insurance for a child for $100 per month, we'll put that in there. And remember, it's only the health insurance for children. So if Jan were to pay $500 per month, and if she didn't have any children, it would have only been, she would still have had to pay $400 a month, and it's just an extra $100 to add the children. That's the only amount that you put here. You do not put the full $500 in there. Does that make sense? I'm going to assume if you don't say anything that it makes sense. Work-related childcare expenses for children. People fight over this all the time. You can either leave childcare out of the worksheet and just have an agreement, like in the order that it's going to be split 50-50 or however it's going to be split, or you can put it in the child support worksheet. Can you think of why you might not want to put it in the worksheet?
If like grandparents are taking care of them?
Yeah, so if childcare is not being paid for at all, you wouldn't have it in here as an expense.
If the amount fluctuates.
Right. If it fluctuates, or if the child is in daycare now but is about to go to school soon, and so childcare expenses are going to go down a lot, or they might go up a lot. You don't want to have to modify child support regularly, right? But if the child, for example, is in school and the after school care is going to be similar, you know, for the next, until the child turns 18 or, you know, something like that, then you may want to just go ahead and put it in here. Another reason to put it in here is so the parties never have to talk to each other. And so if you have a domestic violence situation, go ahead and try to get it put into the worksheet so that they don't have to worry about reimbursement and things like that. Okay.
What's the typical like standard practice? Do people normally include it in there, or is it typically excluded unless there's a good reason to include it?
I would say when private attorneys are negotiating it, it's more likely for it to not be in there. When you are dealing with parties who cannot get along very well, or when there's pro se people, then you just put it in the worksheet. Because then child support services can get it, can enforce it rather than having to enforce it through Superior Court. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. One thing to be aware of when you add this childcare, this is a yearly number here. And so like if I choose child 1, this is not per month, this is not per week. You have to actually figure out what it is annually. Okay, so if it's $100 a week times 52 weeks, right? So this is what it would be annually, but it gets really confusing. Well, and so actually if I'm saying that this is a child who's preschool age, right, then it's going to be yearly here. Otherwise you have to break it out by summer, school year. Like, it's very annoying. So just keep that in mind. Don't accidentally do it monthly or it will be much too low of a number. Okay. The next tab is deviations. There's some debate going on right now about the low income deviation. Basically what this says is if the party who's supposed to pay child support has very, very low income, it will reduce the amount of child support they're supposed to pay. My clients are often both very low income, and so it would not be just to have a low income deviation because neither party is making much money. And so that's why these deviations are discretionary. Okay, the court has to find that they're in the child's best interest. But the most common deviation is going to be a specific or non-specific deviation. So I'm going to just go into this so you can see what they are. A deviation type. So these are the specific deviations. Non-specific is the parties agreed on something else, and so we're just going to make it be what we want it to be. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So again, all of these are not mandatory. They are simply discretionary, like if the court thinks that it's in the child's best interest. Okay. I have never, for example, seen somebody take a mortgage deviation. I've never seen that. For it to actually go into the worksheet though, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a non-specific deviation. You have to make it, if it's a decrease, it needs to have a negative sign here. And then you also have to type it here into a judicial discretion applied amount. So if you only put it in the proposed amount, it's not going to show up on the worksheet. You have to put it here too. And if you want it to be a decrease, it has to be negative or it's going to show up as an increase. Does that make sense?
Sorry, dumb question maybe.
Okay.
would be like, so would this also apply to if like someone was making high income and then maybe like lost their job? Would this be a place to put this?
No, because if they lost their job, then their income is no longer that higher income. You would do their actual income under the gross income tab.
Okay.
If they have a very high income, so something that's important to remember, if you remember that, I'm actually going to go back to, so if you remember this chart here that we had before, this chart only goes up to $30,000 combined income. And this is a monthly number. And so you're like, why, you know, I'm not going to see it very often. I had a case, you know, just like it ended earlier this year where one of the parties made $30,000 per month. And then my client made money on top of that. So if you have a combined income that's more than $30,000, the chart doesn't go that high. And so it stops increasing this number any higher once you hit 30,000. So if you have somebody who's making $100,000 per month, right, that's $70,000 that's not being taken into consideration here, that this would continue to go up. And so the way that you fix that is if we go back here to our worksheet, is you do a high income deviation. This would be the combined adjusted income of the parties that is greater than $30,000 a month. You should actually be able to put it in here, but it's not letting me, I think. And so you would put, you know, if the person was, if they had a combined income of $100,000 per month, then the amount that you would put here is $70,000, because that is greater than $30,000 a month. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, speak up if it doesn't. Okay, so I'm gonna not have a deviation in here. Parenting time deviation is one of my most hated deviations. If parties are like splitting time exactly 50-50, there's a couple of different ways to do that, but what you might say is instead of the parent who makes more money paying the full amount, you may only want them to pay the difference between what the two parents would child support number would be. Does that make sense? So if dad's child support was supposed to be $700, but mom's share of the child support is $500, they have exactly equal time. It may just be that dad is going to pay $200 each month. And so you would have to have a deviation of negative 500 in dad's to even those out. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm gonna assume it does. Yeah. Extraordinary educational expenses are like if a child is going to private school and you want to put that in here. Same with medical expenses. Some children have pretty severe disabilities, and so they might have extraordinary medical expenses that happen on a regular basis. So like, for example, if a child needs at-home nursing care, and that's an expense that happens every month, you may want to put that in here. Same with special expenses for child rearing. You know, maybe a child's in travel baseball and they want to put that expense in here. I wouldn't recommend putting things like that in the worksheet, but if it's a high conflict couple and the expenses are pretty similar from month to month, then you could put that in here, special expenses. For any deviation, you have to answer these 3 questions. Would the presumptive amount be unjust or inappropriate? Would the deviation serve the best interest of the child? And would the deviation make it so that the custodial parent couldn't do what they need to do to take care of the child? And so you have to say no. So it has to be yes, yes, no in order for it to be granted. Okay, so once you do all of that, you say display worksheet results, you give it a name, and then it will show us the worksheet. So this is what it spits out. This here, remember, was the gross income. Gross income, this is their total income. This is their pro rata share of that income. This should always equal 100%. This is the basic child support obligation from that table. Okay, and so if we wanted to, if you remember this number, 3269. So we're gonna go back to, so if we go back to the table, and find 3269, so it's actually going to be 33 here. For 2 children, it should be 952. And so if I go back now to this, the presumptive, okay, so maybe it's different for some reason, but they may have gone up to the next one, but this is the pro rata, or this is what the total worksheet should be, okay? Or the total presumptive amount should be. This is the pro rata shares of this. So this right here, this number is 38% of this. This number here is 61% of this. We took the work-related childcare and the health insurance expenses and divided them pro rata and put it here. This number plus this number equals the adjusted child support obligation. The parent who actually pays for the health insurance and the work-related childcare gets credit for that. In this case, Jan Smith paid for both of them, so she gets credit for both. This would be her presumptive child support amount. This would be his presumptive child support amount. If he's the non-custodial parent, that is what he would pay. If there had been any deviations, it would subtract it right here. And so that would take that into account. So that's the child support worksheet. What questions do you have? No questions at all? Okay, then we're gonna look at, since we just did child support, we're now gonna look at what the child support addendum looks like. So if you want to, I'm gonna go back to this. So once you have a child support number, then you have to do a child support addendum. And this is can you all see that child support addendum? The court has these forms in hard copy form. I'm going to also send you guys this one. This one's a fillable version that I've made, so you can type right into it and just like check the boxes. So again, we had Joe Smith, we have Jan Smith, we have our whatever number it was. If this is a final, which in your TPOs, they're finals. It's either an initial or a modification. We had initial. Remember, we had this. These are the numbers that were in your child support worksheet. Apparently, my worksheet is not entirely fillable, so I'm gonna have to fix that. And then the child support worksheets of whoever submitted it. If there is insurance, you just say yes. You say who's going to do it. So in this case, mom was the one who's going to provide it. The amount that the parents are going to pay, remember, of uncovered medical expenses, remember, was 50-50. And then in your, this is for parenting time deviation. For most cases, if the parents have every other weekend and holidays, that's what this says here, the percentage is 20.8. So that's what we'll see most often. If a parent, because of a TPO, is getting no time, then it's 0, right? So, do your best to estimate that. It gives you a couple of different choices here. Do you remember what our child support number was? It was, the presumptive amount was $941. Oh, for each parent, I'm sorry, was
3 something and then like 6 something.
it was $39 for mom and $902 for dad.
Shit.
Yeah, do you remember? Here, I'll show you guys again. This was our child support worksheet. Remember, this was the presumptive amount for mom. This was the presumptive amount for dad. So 39 and 902. Where's my... I wish you could just toggle between sharing. So what did I say it was? 32 and 902. We didn't have a deviation in this one. If we did, we'd have to say which deviation and then the reasons for the deviation. Okay. If there were Social Security benefits, we would check that. And then you say, taking into consideration everything above, father shall pay to mother child support of the children, $902 per month. And then you are going to decide, or the court will decide. Generally, they pick monthly. When I come to agreements with people, generally we're picking semi-monthly in the amount of, so if you did it semi-monthly, then it's going to be $451, right? Because you're going to do it twice a month, beginning on June 1st, 2020. Okay. And then you have to get the court to sign this. It doesn't have to be consented to. So if the court's ordering it at court, it's not going to be consented to. If you come to an agreement, then you get them to sign. In child support, if you want the money to be automatically taken out of somebody's paycheck, the statute allows for that. You have to do an income deduction order. You get it actually signed by the judge. You have to send it to the family support registry. You have to send it to the employer. You have to send it to the non-custodial parent. I have these steps written out for you guys. I have all the forms here. I'm going to send those to Annie too. I assume she has them, but I have them as fillable forms. So I'll send those to you guys too. Okay. So even if you have a child support order, it will not be automatically deducted from the other party unless you actually go through and get a separate income deduction order signed and then do all of these steps.
And this only works if you know their employer and they don't leave that employer, right?
Correct. Yeah, so it does not work generally for self-employed people, for people who move jobs a lot, for people who quit their jobs just so it can't be taken out. But if you have somebody who has a W-2 job, then you can do that.